I don't need to know how that whole engine works. I like will get help from people and I'll do my research. But for that part, just jump in, do it, get the first draft done, and you're not going to be an expert at everything. And I'm not super proud of it, but there's something there to be worked with. And once I get more of that fleshed out, carve some more of that marble, then it will be a good short story.
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
Today, my friends, I am talking to fledgling author Bud Bellflower. Bud, tell us about yourself.
Well, I've gone a lot of different places. I initially went to school to be a teacher and I taught for a year and really just 180'd out of there and moved to Colorado with my cousin, ended up in a pro wrestling organization. And I couldn't forget Chris Hoff and Jim Crumpton of Great Media and their editing services that, I mean, they'll charge you because they're not your friends. But Jim, Chris, and I are talking a lot and we're writing a lot. And so we edit each other's work just like as a quid pro quo thing. But it would be cool for their business to get off the ground. So Great Media LLC at gmail.com for that as well. And if I'm promoting this, anyone that comes in from me is going to know me from my pro wrestling days, which are very shortly behind me. I just recently quit, retired, whatever
Just
you would,
retired from wrestling, yeah.
and I'm going to be the old man to write a book. And
Great.
that's I got really interested in I like small YouTubers. I like seeing all of like the crevices and the bright spots. And it was just cool that you had all these relatively unknown authors, and I'm just really drawn to that. And I like being able to tell my own story because you get pushed around a lot in life, and in everything, but more so in pro wrestling. And but the sad parts don't need to be talked about. The storylines are what people ultimately are interested in, and you could just, without having people hurt themselves, write it on paper, and then you're not limited to the human form, you're not limited to gravity, you're not limited to anything. And that's, I don't know, maybe it was just I got hit in the head at just the right time and it knocked my brain into place, like, oh, storytelling is really cool if, people aren't hurting themselves and getting a lot of head injuries. The coolest part about having like the modern day, I'm usually one to be stuck in the past, and that's kind of been my identity for so long. But it's really cool to be in the future, like slowly as an old man, like gropes his way through the internet unknowingly. And I'm using a lot of different things to guide my passions, but I'm doing it like a kid who just got a, new red wagon. Like I just want to do everything all at once. Got to go here, got to go there, got to go here. And that's why I need your help to rein me in on what like a good handful of things would be to avoid when writing about things you're uber passionate about. So I'm very glad that this is the topic today.
Yeah, me too. I have severe shiny object syndrome. Like bad.
Me
It's
too.
so bad. um it's horrible. So this is for both of us to learn from. Uh I have written lots of stories, but I haven't ever written about my profession. So
I
let's
guess
charge through this together.
I've ping-ponged around in my working life, so that's going to be reflected in my book for sure. Though, I mean, I've never been a NASCAR driver, but I'm going to write about alien lizards that love NASCAR. There's going to be a whole lot of random, different, not random, I shouldn't say random, but it is very broad, only because I have world builders syndrome. I like to build a whole lot of things in the sandbox, and then it's just like, well, I can't just show people this. I have to tell a story now, and
Mhm.
that's the hard part.
Yeah.
I am not a discovery writer. I am a outliner.
See, that's funny. I'm an outliner too, but I really I feel embarrassed, which is silly, when I'm writing my book and I'm like, oh, I need more world building. Let me describe this church, or let me describe these plants, which will come in
Mhm.
later. And I feel like, okay, I can have two sentences about it and now I have to move on. And I'm in a rush to just
Right. Okay.
put a lid on that and keep going, which has been troublesome as I go back and review my earlier books that I've written and just let sit for a year or two, because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I know there was some key there, but I don't remember what it was. So, and my stories are just little skeletons. So I don't know which problem is better to have.
I think ours probably because once you ultimately get because it's much easier for someone to spur you on and just write a short story. Just like pick something to write about and write about. Just a short little something you want to like a little microscope onto the world that you've built. Instead of what I would imagine of just like, well, I got to a church that you've built and you just have nothing. Oh, what do these people eat? What do they worship? What even I think our like we have multiple religions, multiple whatevers, multiple sports, music, whatever builds your culture. And I think one of the pitfalls, especially if I'm building sci-fi, I'm kind of doing a sci-fi book as an excuse to do alternate history, the more I really think about it. And it has to be sci-fi because there's aliens. You know, fantasy and aliens, there's only one George Lucas. And I think what I'd want to avoid would be not to look like a juvenile, like a kid in a candy store, because there's kind of a good mood for that. But I wouldn't want people to think that I'm only writing about the things that I happen to be into. Like that would be I don't know how to put that into words, but I wouldn't want the reader to presuppose like, is this guy just literally putting all of his hobbies into this book?
Mm-hmm.
No, I have lots. I'm giving you, well, lots, but I have way more. Picked and chose and curated these for these particular lizards on this planet because the ants on that planet, and I shouldn't, that's another, we won't get into that. Just for simplicity's sake, the ants on that planet, their favorite sport is chess. And I mean, sport, whatever. Like when they looked onto Earth, they were like, oh, I shouldn't say they, she, the queen, the only one that has sentience within all those, looked and said, yeah, chess and Go, I think, the old Japanese one, and Mahjong for fun. I don't know, like the ones that everybody's grandma plays,
Yeah.
though I'm not into any of that. So actually, maybe that would be the yin and the yang of my writing. I would be writing a romanticized version about like chess because I'm not that into it, not very smart. I might watch a YouTube video or two to just see like a glaze over, but that would be something that I could romanticize a little bit. Whereas one of the cat people on Marie are really, really into combat sports because they were super into war beforehand, and that's not cool. And when they not just seeing Earth. They grew up on their own the same way that hopefully humans have, but they also saw Earth and they were like, oh, ooh, ooh, okay, no, no, we're not doing that. And to get out the aggression, to get out the I'm better than you ness, the tribalism, they went to sports, which to me that's what they're for. And they just particularly because they're like lions and panthers and mountain lions or whatever I have a few, but I want to make many. They will have different martial arts. So I mean, I've built so many little ducks and I love and hate it at the same time. Greco-Roman wrestling, which is the only one I know about, but then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know a couple people who've dabbled in it. All that to say, to tie into a previous one, editing is hard. How do you feel about I guess many, the multi-octopus method? You just have little mini editors here and there. Like if I have, whenever I have a character that needs to be really into a certain country artist, I can call my grandma or my aunt, and like they will be interested in that part of the story.
Mhm.
If I have this big race scene where there's a whole like it's neck and neck and people are going into turn four and yada yada whatever, I go to like my uncle or my stepdad, like, and have essentially 70 editors that have just, when they want to read something, they'll read. I guess that's beta readers though.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're helping you tone the book down, if they're helping you improve the book and giving you expertise that you don't necessarily, I mean, you don't have to accept all the feedback that they give you, but if it's helping you to learn more and to really shape the book the way it's, I want to say the way the book wants to be shaped, but the way
Yeah,
you envisioned it feeling, then
right.
your, I mean, objective is being met, right?
Yeah, and maybe that's my first, and not my first point. We can have however many. My first point would be to humble yourself firstly and know that there's someone who knows about what you know more than you, and
Ooh.
then find that person and buy them dinner and uh ask them to look at your writings.
Yeah, that's a hard one to swallow, but very true.
I think
Yeah.
you're right, but it's a very good lesson to learn and to grow up, I think. Because
See,
you're also better at things than other people, but they'll be the ones asking you for advice. You got plenty of time for that.
right, right. See, that's a good one. I I'm not really at that point yet. I kind of mentioned this in my interview with Jalen, the first one, but I have a lot of first drafts. I can pump out first drafts, and then I
Huh.
keep thinking, oh, this one's not very good. I'll just write a new book and it'll be better. And have, I'm really, this summer is the time. I'm going to take a semester off of school and really sit down and edit a book. And
Well,
it's
you know what though? I understand your frustration, but you're also not wrong. How many first drafts would you say you've written for a book?
For the one I'm working on now, I wrote the first draft and then I went through and I kind of tore it in half and I
Oh.
put things in for a different book that I've done the third
Oh,
draft for. And
I
then
feel like I'll do that too.
the main meat of it, I'm going over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You not trim the fat, but it's not a ham sandwich and a turkey sandwich. It's just a ham sandwich. And you like there needs to be separation, I'm assuming, from what you've given me.
Yeah.
Uh, so
It was too
then
much. It was too, I wanted too much to happen. And it was actually just enough for me to be like, oh, I'll just cut it nicely in half.
cool.
Similar characters, kind of, but different, completely different situation.
But I mean, at the same time, you've gotten better at writing because of it.
Yeah.
Like I understand the pitfalls too, because then it's just, well, if I've done 20, then I'll certainly be better if I do 100 before I write my novel. But like there is there is a benefit, a boon to just doing it. Not not necessarily just blindly, but I guess that would be a second tip of mine is that even when you don't think you're the expert, because if you're an outliner or a world builder or that type of person like we are, then you're going to have this idea that you need to know everything. I need to know absolutely everything about the way an engine works if I'm going to detail a garage scene. And that is going to be difficult. But really, you just jump into it because you don't have to know everything. You just have to like know what you need to like they walk over to and they pop open the hood and then they're looking at I'll do I don't the the serpentine belt because that's something I know. That's like something I have dealt with personally with one of my cars. And then people like, I don't need to know how that whole engine works. I like will get help from people and I'll do my research. But for that part, just jump in, do it, get the first draft done. And you're not going to be an expert at everything because
Mhm.
you would have to be like 70,000 PhDs to write the book that you really want.
Well, and I think, like you said, that's where beta readers come in. That's where friends and other experts, you take them to dinner and say, hey, I need you to look over like these two chapters of my book
Hmm.
and tell me what to change. Things like that. But for me, I really was hesitating to write my first book. It took me a long time to kind of spit it out because I wanted to be perfect. And I would
Hmm.
stop and I would research and I would research and I would add a little detail and then, oh no, I'll have to change it and go back. And finally, I was like, I'm not going to finish this. Let me just skip that. He fixed something in the car,
Yeah.
and
Right.
we move on. And then later, I'll put like 4 stars next to that and
Right.
go back to it later, which I
Right.
haven't done yet.
You know what that is? That's an even like just to put it in brackets for me to for my brain have like he fixes the car, just something real simple, and then just move on to something that you want to write about. It's the same as when you're taking a test and you just don't know, just move on. I used to tutor kids, I used to teach, so I'm learning how to write with SAT test strategies.
Hey, if it works, do it.
Because I'm I struggle so bad with my first drafts because I want them to be perfect. And this is no excuse. Any kids watching, do as I say, not as I do. Don't do what I do. All through college, and this was partly the perfectionism, partly because I was kind of a degenerate. I would wait literally until the last day. And the routine was always the same. And I always said, I'll do different next time. And I just didn't. But it was the night before. I would eat dinner kind of early. And then at like 7 o'clock, I would just start. And it was just da, 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 snack. Da, 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 da. And then by like 4 a.m., I was just done and I would turn it in and I'd typically do okay.
Mhm.
Like there was even a professor that was like, if I can tell that this is the first draft, you're gonna get a D minus. Like just maximum grade, you're gonna get a D minus. And I said, challenge accepted. And I mean, I got a B in that class, but that's not bad.
No. What you're saying reminds me of something that my brother told me about. And he said, when you're writing or when you're doing anything and you're having a hard time, B plus quality is what you're aiming for. It doesn't have to be an A,
Yep.
it doesn't have
Hmm.
to be A minus.
That's
A
right.
plus. Make it good enough and
C's
then
get
move on.
degrees.
And that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, especially for the first draft. Like I to loop it all back around to the point, thank you, is that if you're a perfectionist and you're writing a first draft, you're gonna get stuck. But you just like get the first draft out there and it's probably gonna be good. It's probably gonna be B plus. But then you take your friends to dinner, take your aunt to, wherever, and you make it better. You trim the fat, you get rid of some words, you put in there, just edit it. And I think the most inspiration slash terror that I've seen was whenever one of my, she wasn't a PhD yet, but she had her dissertations, many, many drafts in like folders up on the screen. And it was just like chapter one, um trial one or whatever she called it, and it was just 43 of them for chapter one, and then chapter two was more of the same. Just like
Oh,
one, I could never be a doctor of anything. I want to write fun stuff, but if I want to make it good, then that's kind of I wouldn't want to do it 43 times. But you just quality editors
mhm.
and quality time, and don't trust AI.
No. Oh, good grief, no.
It won't help you with editing, and it's
It's really great at a lot
soulless.
of things, I'll admit it, but like editing, nope, don't, don't.
That, and you know what? There's tip number 4 or whichever we're on. Don't substitute a lack of knowledge with, oh, I'll just ask AI. Like, write me something from the point of view of an expert at tennis. Like how like,
Mm.
you'll get a commercial.
Yeah. Now, I do think that's something you could put in as like your little bracket. Oh, talk about something with fouls in tennis and cheating with a
Right.
history in something. And then you can ask AI. And then I think you could probably take that to your expert and be like, hey, I looked up this, I put that in my book, but now I want to make sure it's correct. How would you say that? Or is this actually a thing?
Right.
You know?
Right. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Especially if, and this might be annoying, but sports are a very big theme of my book. Only because I really like the idea of, and this isn't the main theme, but it's one of the subplots that you do want to substitute your tribalism and your vulgar displays of aggression to something with rules that you can get all that out and still feel good or still suffer defeat without literally dying.
Without dying. Yeah.
I don't know. There was I'm not gonna get on a soapbox here, but there are a lot of people that like to make fun of sports. And ask Nelson Mandela if sports are important. That's my opinion on that.
I think if sports weren't natural to us, then there wouldn't be different sports all over the world, you know?
Hmm. And speaking of that, I'm not, I am very new at positivity. And that might sound edgy, but it like I am very new. Yeah,
So am I.
cool. I'm glad we're on the journey together. A lot of what this book is going to do is highlight the the good things essentially of humanity, because the main theme of the book, I don't want to give a whole lot of away, but there are four, and I can't decide on their age, early 20s kids, adults, men and women, that are in an alien hospital that wake up in Europa and they realize, okay, what? We've been abducted and we're not on Earth. And they're in a human settlement for other humans that have been abducted by people that want to make a difference in the wrong way. And because I don't think I've explained it yet, the whole known intelligent universe operates under a basically red, yellow, green system. Red meaning primitive, the species, you just leave them alone. Let them develop. Like you can't just go down there with like all this new technology with that. And then yellow, spacefaring, when a species has gone far enough in their development that they've gone to space. They have successfully like manned a vessel and landed on either a moon or another planet, something like that. They're in the yellow. Okay, they're figuring stuff out. That's when the intelligent races, species, whatever I'm calling them, can watch. They can watch the yellow species. They can watch their TV, watch their movies, listen to their music, watch their sports. They could just like watch them like they're a zoo, because it's like they're basically animals to them. And to the greater, I've created like 8, 9 different species that live in 5 or 6 different planets across different galaxies, and all of them combined, maybe like 10% of them care about Earth. It's like a weird interest, like, oh, they'll probably die out. Like it's just another yellow species, whatever, who cares? But for those 10%, they the nerds went to Europa, Jupiter's moon, and carved out a little base, a little camping spot that eventually turned into a thriving metropolis called Sanctus. And that's where the main characters wake up in Paradisa, the uh, human refuge of Sanctus.
Very interesting.
That's the best elevator promo I got.
I like how organized it is. I'm a big fan of organization, but everything makes sense that you said.
Mhm.
Um, I used to watch a lot of Star Trek. The
Yeah,
original, I'll say. I don't know why that was my favorite,
I
but it
haven't.
was.
I'm not cultured.
But they kind of have the same thing where, oh, we're going to observe this planet, but
Hmm.
we can't let them see us. Or like, oh yeah, these ones are advanced enough, we can kind of introduce ourselves.
Right.
Um, so that's very interesting, and it's also terrifying that you would just wake up like, oh, congratulations. we've chosen you to be in a human colony over here. Hope you like it.
And well, they didn't get chosen. They had to. This, I guess, this. I have a question about, and it really what it boils down to, and I really don't like it when, because when you ask your friends, they're like, "Well, it's your book. You can do whatever you want." Okay, that's
Mhm,
not really what I was asking, but
mhm,
I really like the idea of just starting. Like there is no intro. Everyone talks about you have to establish their status quo or their daily life or whatever that is. And I know that, 90-10 rule, you want to follow a majority of your rules, but 10% of the time you can break them. And if you do it stylishly, you can get away with it. Um, but I kind of want my four kind of main characters just waking up in the hospital like what happened, because the lead up to it is kind of boring. Not boring, but just like very, we had to get some humans off of Earth in a way that's not their fault, but now they woke up not with amnesia, but it's kind of amnesia, and it's okay because we're at chapter 1 page 1. It's fine, like you didn't know them to begin with. And that's how I feel about the intro, I guess. But I also don't want to break such a big thing.
Well, it sounds like you have a good reason to break it. It sounds like you are in that 10% because the four main characters that you have are the reader, right?
Mhm.
Because it's around this time,
Mhm.
right? And it's just one
1999,
person.
actually.
Well, well, we're certainly a lot different from 1999, unfortunately, but it's
And
pretty
it'll make it
close
easier
still.
to not comment on like current things, not to be boring about why I chose it, but it's also nostalgic too. Like it's just fun.
The 90s were beautiful.
Yeah. And like the alien races are going to be able to watch humans anxious about Y2K.
Mhm,
And they're just gonna like what? They're anxious about a number. I don't want it to be all alternate history because it's not, nothing is going to be affected on Earth.
mhm.
Like,
You're
I
just
mean,
seeing it through a different lens.
yeah, and I think that's what I want the dramatic irony to be. Like the fact that you're going to be reading it in 2020, whatever, 2026 or 7 or whenever it finally comes out. So you'll know if you're reading it and it says Earth 1999 or Earth 2002. It's like, I mean, yeah, Earth's not going to get blown up or anything. It hasn't. Like I experience what I'm experiencing. So that's the fun that I have with it, I think. And then I'll have to document how these other alien species react to things on Earth. But it's only the nerds. It's only like the ones, because if they were to call their grandma, they wouldn't care about any Earth thing. Like, oh, stop that. It's like the 15-year-old that watches way too much anime. That's how they get treated by most of society.
Well, if you keep running into that barrier, that rule, then it sounds like just skip it, just move it.
Yeah. And then, I think because it is that is good, thank you, but it is also important to, especially when you do something like that, like I just want to ignore my intro, I have to have some of the other pillars. I can't just not do anything and be formless. Then it's just like a scattered slam poetry thing that's not good because I'm not good at slam
Yeah.
poetry.
Another thing you could do, I don't know how you're editing it right now, right? Like you've finished the first draft.
Oh no, I
Okay.
have written short stories. This
Mm,
is I actually wanted to mention it before. It was my workaround for having a whole bunch of drafts. My mom actually had the idea. Instead of just like grinding away at the novel at the first, because I also have Illusions of Grandeur and I want there to be like 13 books in my series. Uh, but instead, write a short story about a little snippet, and then that is good practice. The first one I wrote, I got like 3 paragraphs in and realized it wasn't viable and just got rid of it. But at least I wrote those 3 paragraphs and I was better. And then the next time around, I wrote like 3 pages, and I think maybe like 4 or 5 pages. And I'm not super proud of it, but there's something there to be worked with. And once I get more of that fleshed out, carve some more of that marble, then it will be a good short story. And
mhm.
then the one I actually worked on another one that didn't really pan out either, but being able to notice when it doesn't work out is a skill, and I'm glad I'm getting that. You're managing your time well. Because now I've got a short story that I'm really proud of. So it's within the universe, but it's the reason that I need to write these two is because when you have six different planets and eight, nine different species, you can't just like introduce them one by one. Like you have to ease people into it. It's like a sci-fi trope to have a whole cast of different aliens to have to meet, and you have to do it slowly. But I think a good way, I have a character that I've created that's basically a junk man, and he just like space truckers around and he collects the garbage that's going around and just like puts it in his truck, and then he goes to different planets and just like, you need some of this. It's just very, I pick up the junk, I sell it, I trade, I help people. And he goes into a deal on Sanic, which is the sandy planet full of the lizards and ants, to meet a Rakla is their actual name, a lizard man, a Rakla man who is trying to start up a racing organization, which is entrepreneurial. And I don't know anything about starting a business, but when he get by the time this character gets there, he's having a meal, the other guy's having a drink. He has his sarsaparilla and talks about giving his rubber conveyor to him for barriers for his racing organization. But how much? This could be, big money signs in his eyes. How much could this be? And he's like, well, truthfully, I want to get 16 tracks, about 2.5 miles, or a mile and a half each, trying to get as much as I possibly can. And so he's, oh man, this could be a big business opportunity, but it all hinges on this one weekend of like there's gonna be a drag race and then a little heat and then a big heat, and they're trying to put it on essentially what would be like space YouTube. I haven't given it a name, but they're gonna like go through that whole like, oh god, we got to put the cameras in, we got to connect the cords and make sure that we get the microphones. And like I know that life, I know that life way too well, and so that will be part of it. Story, because I know so much about getting something going on the back end in a production room. uh how would I avoid boring the reader? And it would go back to other points we've made. Get someone who doesn't know anything about it, I guess, would be the opposite. You want to get someone who knows a lot about it and someone who doesn't know anything about it. I'll call my mom, just like ask her to read that because she doesn't know anything about like a backstage production type
Yeah.
thing.
Does it make sense? And is it interesting? Do you understand?
Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure.
Not too much jargon. That'd be an easy one. That's not enough to be a point, but like not too much jargon,
No, I think
not
it's
too
a good
much
point.
insider. Then you sound like you're trying to be smart. And that's
Yeah, if you can't explain something simply, then you don't know enough about it.
right. Emily Dickinson, I think, wrote, I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one.
I
And
like
it
that.
blew me away. I loved it.
Oh, well, I've never heard that. That's great.
Hmm.
Hmm. Fifth item on our list should be if you're not enjoying writing the section,
Yeah.
then don't bother. Because if you,
How would
as a
they enjoy
writer,
it?
aren't enjoying it, then there's no way your audience is going to be like, oh, yeah, this is interesting. Don't. So,
Right. That makes you really think and ask yourself if you are passionate about this. And passion shouldn't be mistaken for knowledge, because I built the story, I've angled the camera so that you have a different take on it. Yeah, whenever I talk about chess in my book, it's not going to be from a masterful perspective. It'll be from a fish out of water perspective, and it'll be a comic relief probably. I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. But I do I like exactly how you worded that. You have to be passionate about it. So you really do have to ask yourself if you are passionate about it. And if you don't know anything about it, it doesn't matter. Ask yourself if you're passionate about it.
mhm. Because it's also going to help you to finish the book. Writing a book is
Yeah.
hard, and if you're not enjoying it, then why are you doing that to yourself?
Yeah. You don't have to be here. Well, it's because everybody says you have to write every single day. And while that's good for building a habit,
Mhm.
don't imprison yourself in your own brain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think maybe this is something because I'm 31 years old, I'm no longer a spring chicken, that you can, and because, like I said earlier, I've ping ponged around in my life. When you're young and you're ping ponging, you think, oh, I'm giving up on this entirely. I'm gonna do this new thing. Oh, I'm giving up on that entirely. I'm gonna do this new thing. But then eventually you get old, and then you come around to an old one. You're like, oh, hey, I'm like level 6 at this already. I can just pick up where I left off.
That's
It feels
true.
good. That's the most fun about writing, I think, is that you're doing that, but on a like incredibly minute level.
But you also get to show it off,
Oh yeah,
you know?
and exactly how you want to.
Hmm.
And I mean, I mean, this one's not even really a bullet point on here, but the fun of writing is that you get to have the smells and the tastes, and you just don't get to have that with TV or anything other than actually experiencing it. And maybe it's just me, but I'm getting old and my taste buds are like dampening. And I like writing about when I remember food tasting like new and just like, oh my goodness, this is what couscous with the right amount of, I don't even know how they did it, but it was really good couscous. I've never had it that good ever again. And not to be like negative Nancy about it, but like you pick the things that you're gonna have, a rising experience, and you pick the things that you're going to settle. And if I could write about really good food and eat healthy, great. That's what I'm really getting at. Is because if I eat all the things that taste really good, I will be in bad health. So instead, I will eat my rice and my broccoli and my grilled chicken, and I will write about all of the fatty fried sand roach and water root that's dipped in the like whatever equivalent of blue cheese dressing would be. Maybe that's an asterisk point.
It'll be a
Like, do
bonus
what you
point.
can't do.
Hmm. Yeah, this has been so much fun. Where can people find you?
I'm at Bud Bellflower on Instagram, X. I think those are the only two. I'm not really a social media guy, but I'm gonna get going more soon. And when I have things that are finished and I can give people, I will be promoting it on either Twitter, X, Instagram, Bud Bellflower.
Awesome.
Like it spelled just without the space.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Okay,
Me
comment
too.
below with the word alien. And if you do, then an alien will abduct you, erase your memory for an hour, and implant the best writing habits in your brain. And then you will wake up and be an incredible writer. So comment below.
On Earth. You'll
Oh,
still be on Earth.
that's right. Okay, see you later, guys. Go write.
Thanks.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And thank you so much for watching. Go write your book.